How many times have you told your child something, waited for a response, and thought, why are you ignoring me? You ask them to put their shoes on. Nothing. You ask again. Still nothing. You tell them it is time to leave. They continue playing, and after repeating yourself 5, 6, or even 10 times, you may start thinking, my child is not listening to me. Maybe you think they are being stubborn. Maybe they are deliberately ignoring you. Maybe they know exactly what you said but simply don't want to do it. But what if there is another explanation? What if your child actually heard you, but something is making it difficult for them to process, respond to, or act on what you said? For some neurodivergent children, what looks like not listening can sometimes involve processing differences, attention difficulties, sensory overload, communication differences, anxiety, or simply needing more time to respond. And once you understand what may be happening underneath the behavior, the way you communicate with your child can change dramatically. In this video, we're going to look at why your neurodivergent child may not respond when you talk to them, and what you can do differently. 1. Hearing you is not always the same as processing what you said. One of the first things parents need to understand is that there is a difference between hearing information and processing information. Your child may hear your voice. They may even understand some of the words. But that does not necessarily mean they can immediately process everything you have said and turn it into an action. Imagine saying, put your toys away, go upstairs, get dressed, brush your teeth, pack your bag, and come downstairs because we're leaving in 10 minutes. To you, that might sound like one set of instructions. To your child, it may feel like 6 different tasks arriving all at once. Where do they start? What comes first? What comes next? How much time do they have? What happens if they get something wrong? For some children, that amount of information can be overwhelming. And when they don't respond, it can look like they are ignoring you. But the problem may actually be, I don't know where to begin. So instead of giving several instructions at once, try breaking them down. Instead of, get ready, put your shoes on, pack your bag, brush your teeth, and come downstairs. Try, first, put your shoes on. Give your child time. Then, now, get your bag. One step at a time can make an instruction much easier to process. 2. They may need more time to respond. Here's something that can be easy to miss. You ask your child a question. They don't answer. So you ask again. Still nothing. You ask a third time. Then you become frustrated and say, I already asked you. But what if your child was still processing the first question? Some neurodivergent children may need additional time to process spoken language and formulate a response. That means the silence you interpret as, they are ignoring me, may actually be, I'm still working out what you said and how to respond. Try something simple. Ask the question, and pause. Give your child a few seconds before repeating yourself. You might even say, take your time. That small pause can remove some of the pressure. And here's the important part. Don't assume that a delayed response means your child didn't hear you. Sometimes, they simply need more processing time. 3. What they are doing may be competing with your instruction. Now think about this situation. Your child is deeply focused on something. Maybe they're building with blocks, drawing, playing a game, watching something, reading, or working on something that requires intense concentration. You walk into the room and say, it's time to get ready. But your child doesn't move. So you say it again. Nothing. You become frustrated. But there is something important to consider. Your child may be deeply focused on what they are already doing. Switching attention from one activity to another may not be easy. You are asking them to stop one mental process and immediately begin another. That transition can be difficult. Instead of shouting the instruction from another room, try getting closer. Use their name. Make sure you have their attention in a respectful way. Then give the instruction. For example, James, I need your attention for a moment. In 5 minutes, we're going to stop playing and get ready to leave. Now your child has information about both what is happening now and what is going to happen next. That can make the transition easier. 4. Repeating yourself louder may not solve the problem. This is something many parents naturally do. You say, come here. No response. So you say it louder. Come here. Still no response. Now you're frustrated, but increasing the volume does not necessarily increase understanding. In fact, if your child is already overwhelmed by sound, a louder voice may make the situation worse. If sensory overload is part of what your child is experiencing, additional noise can add to the problem. So instead of automatically getting louder, try getting clearer. Use fewer words. Lower the number of instructions. Reduce distractions where possible. For example, instead of, "Come on. How many times do I have to tell you? We need to leave, you haven't put your shoes on, and we're already late." Try, "Shoes on, please." Then pause. Sometimes, less language can be more helpful than more language. 5. Your child may be overwhelmed. Now let's consider something else. Imagine that your child has had a difficult day. The classroom was noisy. There were unexpected changes. They had to move between several activities. They had social interactions that required a lot of energy. Perhaps they are hungry. Perhaps they're tired. Perhaps their sensory system has been dealing with more stimulation than usual. Then you arrive home and say, "Come and do your homework." Your child doesn't respond. You might think, "Why won't you listen?" But perhaps the child has already reached their limit. Sometimes, the behavior we see at the end of the day is influenced by everything that happened earlier. The child may not have the capacity to process another demand at that moment. This is why context matters. Before assuming, "My child is refusing," ask yourself, "What has happened today? How much has my child already had to process? Could they be overwhelmed?" This doesn't mean that every refusal is caused by overwhelm. It simply means that behavior makes more sense when we look at the whole situation. 6. Sometimes the instruction itself is too vague. Here's another common problem. You say, "Get ready." But what exactly does "get ready" mean? To you, it may mean, "Get dressed. Put on your shoes. Get your bag. Go to the door." But your child may not know which step to start with. So instead of saying, "Get ready," try making the instruction specific. Put your shirt on. Then, now put your trousers on. Then, now put your shoes on. You might feel like you're giving too many instructions. But for a child who struggles with sequencing or organizing tasks, the opposite may be true. You're actually making the task easier. And over time, your child may become more independent as the sequence becomes familiar. 7. Your child may understand the words but struggle with the demand. This is another important distinction. Sometimes a child understands exactly what you're saying. They know what you want. But they still struggle to act. For example, you say, "It's time to turn off the television." Your child understands, but they don't move. That doesn't automatically mean they didn't hear you. There could be several reasons. They may be deeply engaged in what they're doing. They may be struggling with the transition. They may feel disappointed. They may be overwhelmed. They may need more time. Or they may simply be finding the demand difficult in that moment. So instead of immediately labeling the behavior, "You're being difficult," try asking, "What is making this transition difficult right now?" That question can help you look for the barrier rather than simply reacting to the behavior. 8. Try the connect, then direct approach. Here's a strategy you can experiment with. Before giving an instruction, connect with your child. If they're playing, move closer. Say their name. Get on their level if appropriate. Then give one clear instruction. For example, "Sam, I know you're enjoying your game. In 5 minutes, it's time to turn it off." Then later, "Sam, 5 minutes are up. It's time to turn the game off." This is very different from suddenly shouting from another room, "Turn that off. We're leaving." The first approach gives your child information and preparation. The second can feel sudden. And remember, this isn't about manipulating your child into obedience. It's about making communication clearer and transitions more predictable. 9. Give your child a way to show you they understood. Communication doesn't always have to mean giving a verbal answer. Some children may communicate more comfortably through gestures, pictures, signs, writing, pointing, or other methods. So instead of repeatedly asking, "Do you understand?" you might say, "Show me what we're doing first." Or, "Which one are you doing first, shoes or bag?" This gives you useful information. If your child points to the shoes, you know they understand the first step. If they look confused, you know they may need the instruction simplified. The goal is not to test your child. The goal is to make communication work for both of you. 10. Watch what happens when you change your approach. Now I want you to try something for the next few days. Pick one situation where you regularly feel like, my child doesn't listen. Maybe it's getting dressed, leaving the house, turning off the television, starting homework, going to bed, and instead of changing everything at once, change just a few things. First, get close and make sure your child knows you're speaking to them. Second, use fewer words. Third, give one instruction at a time. Fourth, allow extra processing time. Fifth, give a warning before a transition when possible. Then observe what happens. Does your child respond more quickly? Does the conflict decrease? Does your child need fewer reminders? Does the transition become easier? You are not trying to create a perfect system. You're trying to discover, what helps my child understand and respond? The big question, is it defiance? Sometimes, children do refuse. Sometimes they don't want to do what we ask. And yes, children can test boundaries. Understanding neurodivergence does not mean assuming that every difficult behavior has nothing to do with boundaries. But we also need to be careful about automatically interpreting every delayed response, refusal, or lack of eye contact as deliberate defiance. There may be something else happening. The more we understand our child's communication, processing, sensory needs, attention, and transitions, the better equipped we are to decide what kind of support or boundary is actually needed. Instead of asking only, why won't my child listen? Try asking, what is getting in the way of my child responding? That question can lead us somewhere much more useful. What to try today? So, if your child frequently seems not to listen, here are 5 things you can try today. Number 1. Get their attention before giving an important instruction. Number 2. Use short, clear instructions. Number 3. Give them time to process before repeating yourself. Number 4. Prepare them for transitions whenever possible. Number 5. Look for the reason behind the behavior before assuming the worst. And remember, you don't have to implement all 5 at once. Pick one. Try it consistently. Observe what happens. Then adjust. The phrase I want you to remember. The next time your child doesn't respond, instead of immediately thinking, they're ignoring me, try telling yourself, pause. What might be getting in the way? That doesn't mean ignoring boundaries. It doesn't mean allowing unsafe behavior. And it doesn't mean giving your child everything they want. It simply gives you a moment to understand before reacting. Because sometimes, the behavior we see on the outside is only the final piece of a much bigger picture. Conclusion. So, if your neurodivergent child doesn't respond when you talk to them, remember this. They may have heard you. They may need more time to process. They may be deeply focused on another activity. They may be overwhelmed. They may not understand a vague instruction. They may be struggling with the transition. Or they may understand what you want but simply be having difficulty acting on it in that moment. The goal isn't to excuse every behavior. The goal is to understand what is happening so that you can respond more effectively. Because when we stop asking only, why won't my child listen, and start asking, what is making it difficult for my child to respond, we open the door to better communication. And sometimes, one small change in the way we communicate can make an enormous difference. If this video helped you see your child's behavior differently, please give it a like. It helps this video reach more parents who may be struggling with the same situation. And if you're new here, subscribe to the Neurodivergent Parenting Hub. Here, we focus on helping parents understand the behavior behind the behavior, and finding practical ways to support their neurodivergent children through everyday challenges. And I want to hear from you. What is the situation where your child seems not to listen the most? Is it getting dressed? Leaving the house? Homework? Turning off screens? Going to bed? Or something completely different? Tell me in the comments. Your experience may help another parent realize, I'm not the only one dealing with this. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.